If I had to describe to a person on the street what is the significance of genetic resources for food and agriculture, I would say that it's about the biodiversity that you find on your plate. It's about your relation with nature through a very intimate form, which is food. It's about the joy that you feel when you see different types of food on your plate or in your garden. There's many farmers I've spoken to who have said that they choose to plant different varieties, not only because it makes ecological sense or livelihood sense, but also because of the pleasure of seeing a diversity of wheat or tomatoes or whatever else it is. I think the importance of the Commission on Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture has to do with the fact that it takes this very holistic view, that it looks at all of biodiversity for food, that it doesn't divide up into plant genetic resources, aquatic, forestry, etc., etc. And I think that holistic view is what we're missing in the world today. I think the fact that we've divided up nature and the whole world around us into separate things, I think is a false way of looking at the world. In fact, they're not separate, and in fact, what affects them very much is the interconnections between them. And the Commission doesn't only look at biodiversity as a whole, but it also looks at the relation, again, the linkage between biodiversity and people, because it looks at the livelihoods aspect of biodiversity. And so it looks at the entire landscape. And so it's really, the Commission really stands for taking a very holistic view. And I think that this is something that we're missing in the world. In many ways, we're missing it in academia, where our experts are trained on very, very, very specific things. We're missing it in government, where the ministries are divided and departments are divided. The only place where it's really not divided is at the level of the peasant himself or herself, because the peasant has to deal with food, his soil, her economic worries, the cultural aspects. Everything is integrated when you look at the real life of a person on the land. But as soon as we come up to the level of policymakers and experts, we start to divide things. And I think that the Commission offers an opportunity, a very important one, to look at things in a holistic way. I think the Commission is needed because genetic resources are so vital, biodiversity is so vital for food in the future and not just today, for livelihoods of farmers, indigenous peoples, livestock owners. Because it's so important, the policies that govern who has access to it and under what conditions, it's absolutely vital that this should be done in a multilateral space, that it cannot be just one country deciding, and it cannot be left to the markets and the private sector to decide, because their interests are, of course, to maximize their profits. And those interests, they exist, but they should not be the ones that are imposed on the whole of nature, as if that's the only way to look at nature. So I think governments have to take their responsibility to sit down around one table and to work together and agree on who should have access under what conditions in order to maximize the benefit of everyone, including into the future. In terms of the work of the Commission, for me, one of the priority areas should be that the Commission should really attempt to bring into the picture in a much more meaningful way the voices and the experiences and the needs and the demands of the peasants, fisherfolk, indigenous peoples, pastoralists, whose lives depend on these resources, but who have also spent all of their creativity and energy in the past thousands of years to create them, to nurture them. And so I think that it's true that the organizations of civil society can sit in the Commission meetings, but always as observers. And I think that we can learn from the experience of the Committee on Food Security, where we can really see that when civil society is brought into the room as participants and not only as observers, it's true that they don't have a decision-making role, but they are able to participate in the debate on an equal level, and that really makes the debate much more relevant to people's needs, and it really helps the debate to go much more on the crucial issues and to orient policies much more towards the needs of those groups who are the fundamental ones, I think. So they should be at the decision-making table.